Hi, welcome to the year of connection. I know I need to wrap up the year of joy. Sorry, I'm turning around now because I'm never quite ready, even though I'm the one that turns the camera on. Um, Hi, Happy New Year, first of all. Um, and I would apologize for not doing a number of videos, which I've had in my head and which will happen, but life happens. What do you do, right? So, not gonna coulda, woulda, shoulda about that. Don't you do that either about things. That could be a New Year's intention instead of a resolution, right? I hope. What I do want to talk about is, first of all, just sort of wrapping up a little bit about the year of joy and the lovely reminders that I had. The last 3 months of the year were pretty chaotic in good ways and challenging ways. Um, Two things happened that I'm going to circle back to. I went on a spiritual journey, a yantra, to India for 2.5 weeks. And then I also attended my very first Quaker meeting as well. And they are related, believe it or not. One thing that I want to say about the year of joy is that, first of all, joy should be every day, right? Hopefully, we can find a way to find the joy every day, every week, every month, every year. There's always joy to be had, right? There's always something that you can connect to find joy. I just through a challenging, exciting, interesting, amazing year that 2023 was, and there were a lot of challenges for all of us. There were still amazing moments of joy, and probably even more than I realized. A couple of reminders, because even though these are things that we may know, at least I certainly need to be reminded of them probably fairly regularly. One is that you are the only one who can generate your own joy. You are the only one who can connect to your joy. No one else can do that for you, right? So making your happiness or your joy dependent on another person in any way, shape, or form, whether this is you're waiting for some decision that someone's going to make, whether you are in a relationship, and I'm talking about any kind of relationship, where you are expecting that person to do things to rescue you, to make you happy, to make you joyful. First of all, it doesn't work, so it's a bad idea that way. And then it tends to interfere a lot, not only with your own happiness and joy, but with the relationship as well, because you have unrealistic expectations of someone who simply cannot make you happy. No one else can make you happy. And that was certainly a reiteration of a lesson for me in the last year. So I share that with you. I called this the year 2024, the year of connection. And that's going to relate back to these two experiences that I had at the end of the year. And I probably will have more to say about both. But the initial thing that I will say, and the thing that I want to talk about today, this idea of connection, is so on the spiritual journey, the yantra in India, I spent a lot of time going to ashrams, met at least 5 different gurus, meeting various priests of various temples, and all of whom were really beautiful beings. Really, I'm not saying, and I'm not saying that there was anything that, and every single one of them, I took something away that was either challenging in a good way, right? That challenged me. That the whole trip actually challenged me to really question: what am I doing? Why am I doing it? How am I doing it? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? And they had a very definite answer for that. They said I was doing it wrong to some degree, right? You need a guru. That's the overarching message that I got from the spiritual leaders that I met, with maybe 2 exceptions. But the overarching message was, you need a guru. You need someone to tell you how to do this, how to be spiritual, how to make a connection to the divine, right? And that got to me on a couple of levels. And it got to me on a couple of levels because, one, I left the church 15 years ago after a lifetime of trying to connect through someone else, through an intermediary, or even with someone else's idea of how I should do that, and not feeling successful most of the time, to spending the last 15 years feeling much more of a connection to the divine, however you want to define it, and then being told, oh no, you haven't done that, you've done that wrong, was very challenging for me. And I sat back and I thought, and I allowed myself to open up to the possibility that maybe it was wrong what I was doing, that I needed to do something different, and that it wasn't actually working. And in the end, I came around through a very difficult time to say, actually, no. And part of that coming around was actually after I got back from India. Not long after I got back from India, I went up to Pennsylvania and ended up going to my very first Quaker meeting. And at my first Quaker meeting, so I don't know if you know anything about a Quaker meeting, but for those of you that don't, I was unfamiliar. So I will just explain very quickly. Basically, a Quaker meeting is a meditation session. It seems that you usually have some form of a short reading and an introduction, and then everyone sits in meditative silence for about 50 minutes. And the idea is that you sit in meditation, connecting to the divine, or you sit quietly. And if you are inspired, if the light inspires you with a message, then you might stand up and share the message. So I was very excited about this idea. I thought, wow, okay, this is worship that I can get into. This is, something I try to practice pretty regularly, is just sitting and patiently either waiting for a message or breathing or just being or just connecting to myself and my surroundings and the world around me, or whatever it is, whatever form of meditation I'm using. Because I do use different ones, and moving meditations and others, as I've discussed before. So as I was walking into this meeting, I had a Pat Benatar song playing in my head. We belong. We belong to the light. We belong to the shadow. We belong. And I was irritated by that, because I thought, oh, great. I am going to be sitting here with this earwig in my head, this song playing in my head, and I'm not going to be able to just relax and empty my mind, because this is going to be playing in my head. And I was really irritated as I walked in the door, thinking that was going to be the case, and feeling very irritable about it. So we went in and we sat down, and they read, and it's this beautiful old space that's been having these meetings for a long time. And we sat, and I was able to take a deep breath and connect and ground, and I could hear some Canadian geese outside, and I could hear people breathing, and I could hear people creaking around on boards occasionally, and I could hear people shifting in their seats, and I felt it was a very peaceful, calm experience. And then the song came back, and it kept repeating. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, that's the message, right? We belong. We belong to the light. We belong to the shadow. We belong. The light, and I'm interpreting the light as the divine, right, in this case. So I stood up. I was inspired. I felt like I had a message. And that's one of the beauties of the Quaker meeting, right? Is that anyone, even someone who's never walked in the door of a Quaker meeting before, like me, can feel like they get a message, and they can stand up and deliver their message. And you're short. You're not supposed to get up there and give a 10-minute sermon or anything. But the idea is that you get up, you say what the message is that you feel like you've gotten, and then you sit back down. That's it. No one's judging it. No one's saying oh, that's not a message or anything else. If you're inspired by the light, you share your message. I can't think of a better way of connecting to the divine with a group, and then also being able to share at the same time. So I stood up and I said, I had this Pat Benatar song playing in my head, and I thought, oh, I don't want, I'm not going to be able to meditate. And then I realized that was the message. And that another part of the message was that the message is always there. The divine is always there. It's inside us, right? It's just a question of us connecting to that divine. Now, how do you do that, right? That's the question that comes up. But believe me, you are getting messages from the light, the divine, God, whatever you want to call it, all the time. All the time. It's just a question of how you're listening to it. Are you pushing it aside because it's a Pat Benatar song and you think, well, that can't possibly be a message. It's a Pat Benatar song. But maybe a Pat Benatar song can be a message. Anything can be a message. It's how you interpret it. It's how you're seeing it. It's what your perspective is. So I'm going to leave you with that. And that's how I came. Well, and that's how I came to this idea that as much as anyone can, as I'm stumbling along, whatever path I'm on, finding my way, that I am doing it right. There isn't wrong, right? It's about figuring out if it's true, as we are told by many different religious and spiritual paradigms, I guess. We are supposed to be made in the image of God, the divine light. We are supposed to be divine, to have our own divinity. Everything has its divinity, whether it's a tree, a mouse, a rock, the wind, the sun, the moon, the earth, anything on it or contained in it, around it in the universe. All of those things are divine. I don't need someone else. I don't. Maybe other people do, and that's fine. If you like having a structure around it that's very tight, and if that gets you connected, great. But if it doesn't, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just may mean you're not doing it the way that it works for you. And that's the important thing. What works for you? How do you connect to the divine? How do you do this? I don't need anybody to explain a sunrise to me or a sunset or to experience a tree or a frog or a cat or my dog or the wind or the rain. I can experience those things and I can choose to see them as divinely given, as divinely inspired, and to see how they might inspire me without someone else telling me how to do that. And I think a lot of the turbulence in the spiritual world may be around that, right? This idea that, do we really need somebody else to tell us how to do it? And I may get pushback from friends of mine who are well ensconced in particular traditions, religious traditions, which is fine. And I want to reiterate, if it works for you, I'm not judging it. I'm saying it's not okay for me. It doesn't work for me. I tried for the vast majority of my life to make it work, and it didn't work for me. And if it doesn't work for you, then let's talk, okay? I'm going to be talking about connection, and we'll see where that goes. And I'll probably be talking about some other stuff too, and I also want to continue to talk about joy. But that's my introduction for the year of 2024, the year of connection, continuing also with joy. And I hope that this video finds you well and happy. And I hope that you will reach out to me if you have questions or pushback or challenges or whatever. I'm open to all of it, and I welcome the discussion. So thank you, and big love to you. I look forward to more fun and connection in this year. Ciao.